There's a new season with new cards just around the corner, and I am back. Hopefully this season changes things up for us, and I'll take a little second here just at the start of the video to talk about the previous seasons. I think it got to the point where a lot of people were logging in more out of habit than excitement, and me included. I definitely got quite burnt out here and there. I don't think I'll attribute that purely to Star-Lord. I've seen discussions about this floating around, and the fact that Xu Lao released in January and dominated the meta, and then Star-Lord released the month after and dominated the meta, I think those two things correlated together to just kind of make things feel a bit unfun. Some of these cards look quite good. I don't think anything is necessarily looking as meta-defining as either of those two previous cards have been. I could be wrong. There are one or two cards here or there that do look pretty strong. But without any further ado, let's hop into the cards and see how we'll rate them. So first up we have the Season Pass card in En Sabah Nur, and this card is Apocalypse, I believe. It's a 4/5 which has a new text, ability with objective, and as far as I'm aware, with objective, these conditions can be met whether the card is on board or in hand, but for the ability to proc, the card has to be on board. That is kind of the sentiment I've got from what I've seen. Could be wrong, but I don't believe so. This card reads, objective, have a full front row at each location, transform into Apocalypse Celestials Chosen. And Apocalypse Celestials Chosen is a 4/8 that reads, on reveal, swap the lowest power card in your front row at any location with a card from your deck. So this card is looking pretty strong. I would say it's going to fit really well into, I'll basically say any deck that wants to run a card like Hood, for example. I was just going to say that I would run it in my Evolve deck, but then I was thinking that would mainly be because I'm running Sentry, Hood, and it's another option to just get rid of that card, other than like Merlin's Evolve or Cersei's Evolve. I think it's quite good. You need two conditions really. You need a low cost card, and you need to be able to fill the front row, which the Evolve deck I previously mentioned does quite easily. I do think there's probably a couple of other homes for this. It could very easily work with something like Spider-Ham, I suppose. A 1/1, you trigger its ability, and once this is down, it gets rid of Spider-Ham. You need to be careful when you're playing this card, I suppose, as well. Like, I'm not sure when it would proc its ability in like the chain of abilities. Maybe it would go off first. Can't really be certain until we see it in action. I think this is a very good card, actually. I don't think it's meta breaking at all. 4/8 is quite a good stat line, and an ability like fill the front row is nothing to scoff at. It's like a very easy thing to achieve, is what I mean by that. And it could have a couple of homes. There could be things I'm not thinking of right now, but the Sentry Hood package is definitely going to be one of them. I think for that reason alone, I'm going to have to give it a 4-star. If I gave Star-Lord a 4-star, then Star-Lord was rated above what I feel like this is sitting at, but this card is too good to be rated at 3.5. So 4 it is. Next up we have a card which makes me believe that Second Dinner has decided to finally flip the script back on the Season Pass card and the Super Premium Season Pass card, because the past two seasons Super Premium cards haven't been great. Dragon of the Moon I was a believer in. Like, I believe that card was a lot better than people said it was even before it got buffed. Now I think it's sitting at a good position. I don't think it's meta breaking or anything like that. It does only really have one home, but this next card I believe will be kind of intimidating. It is a 4/3 Iska the Unbeaten, and it reads, end of turn, if you're losing this location, double this card's power. Now, this card is scary because you can give it more power before you play it. You can Maverick it, you can Galacta it. You can also make sure you're more than likely losing the location. It's, well, I mean, especially if you had a card like Sentry down and then you play Iska on the right location, and then eventually get rid of the Void. I had to think for a second. Same situation with the Hood. Anything that would make it so that your location is losing more than the power of Iska. And almost certainly I imagine it's going to be ran with Invisible Woman. I don't know if it's going to be as crazy with Invisible Woman as people think. Yes, it does almost automatically win you a location, which is the problem in itself. It's kind of got that Fing Fang Foom vibe about it. If you're going, well, I guess it doesn't really matter whether you're going first or second because it's end of turn. So if you're losing a location, it will double. You just have to make sure if you're against it anyway, you have to make sure your points are higher than if this card were to double, which I suppose then if Invisible Woman doubles it twice, that's where the problem comes into effect. So kind of a scary card and very likely to have that effect of Fing Fang Foom. I'm thinking if I'm to give one card a season 5 stars, it would have to be this one. I'd be leaning on 4.5. I'm sort of, I've looked at these cards before, I haven't looked at them in detail, so in a way it's kind of like my first time properly dissecting them. I haven't written notes or anything, so I'm going off the fly. But I'm going to give this 5 stars for now. Next up we have Juggernaut, Horseman of War. I love the Horseman of Death style stuff, so I'm so happy they're doing this in cards. But again, it has that same problem where they're the same characters. I just wish that they covered different characters. But anyway, I'm going off topic. This card is a 2/2, objective again. Have 6 different powers among your other cards in play, plus 6 power. So, this card is a 2/8 if it reaches its like objective, which automatically makes it kind of it approaches on that Moondragon Chamber territory, right? Where Moondragon is Dragon of the Moon? Moondragon. Yeah. It took me a second. Moondragon most games will get to like 2/8, 2/10, Chamber 2/8, 2/10. This card can only ever get to 2/8. And I don't know, it kind of just fits in that Wiccan deck, right? Where you play Quicksilver, Juggernaut, Speed, Wiccan, and then a bunch of other stuff. 6 different powers in play. It's not too tricky of an ability to hit, I suppose. Most cards don't have the same power if you're playing on curve, so automatically you're more than likely going to hit that. But even if you have like a couple of 1-drops that don't have the same power, I think it's decent. I don't necessarily see a home for it. Like I think does Wiccan really want a 2/8 that isn't a 2/8 every game? But I'd say 90% of the games is a 2/8. I'm not sure. And I guess the way objective works is if this objective has been achieved, the ability will trigger. I probably should have read into objective a little more, because does that mean if the thing disappears again, like say one of your cards loses a power and it's no longer 6 different powers, does Juggernaut's ability disappear? I'm not sure. It's not very many cases that would happen, so I don't think it's that big of a deal to think about, but I'm going to give this card a 3.5. I think it could see some meta play, but I also don't know if it's needed in many places, but I could be proven wrong. So next up, the next week we have Gambit, Horseman of Death, that reads, well, is a 3/3, same as the other Gambit stat line actually. Objective, play 5 total cost of created cards, randomly destroy up to 4 total cost of enemy cards. So it's kind of cool how we're seeing this cost as currency, I suppose, implemented into the game. I don't think we've really seen that before, but I could be proven wrong. But a card that relies on having a certain amount of costs, I don't believe so. 5 total costs of created cards. I had heard this mentioned before, that it's important how it works, if it takes the cost of the card as it's played or the cost of the card of what it originally was. For example, Valentina. If Valentina gets played, you play Gambit and then you play the 4 cost 6-drop. Does it automatically trigger because it's technically a 6-drop, so it's triggering the 5 power, or do you still need to play one total, I think? The thing is, I don't necessarily believe that's going to be too tricky, because you could be playing things like Hood, and whatever else the Victoria hand decks run, I suppose, like Mirage. I can see this ability proccing most of the time. The only downside I see to this card is destroy up to 4 total cost of enemy cards. So you could destroy a 4 cost, you could destroy like a 3 cost and a 1 cost, etc. You get the idea. The problem is, if you're up against like a ramp deck and this is your game plan, nothing's happening. I suppose like you kill their Lunar Snow and their Ice Cube, or maybe their Electro, or what it was called for a second. But yeah, you're not really getting away with too much there. Or even if you're facing off against a Sentry, because Sentry came to mind, and then imagine you destroy their Void, you know. Because of the unpredictability of what you're hitting, it's even worse than when it comes to Gambit. Is that a bold statement? Like regular Gambit? It might be a bold statement. Something I might take back, because Gambit can hit anything on the board on your opponent's side. But I suppose if they have like 3 6-drops, it's guaranteed to wipe out one of the 6-drops, whereas this cannot. But in terms of being able to tell what it's going to hit, this is probably more reliable, because you can almost guarantee it's going to be wiping out the smaller units on the board. It's a weird one. I can see why people would believe it's strong. It only really has the one home in Victoria hand, right? There's not many other places you want to play it based on created cards. I heard that if you play it with Mysterio, then it crashes the game. But yeah, I'm not really sure. I think that was KM Best that heard that from a data miner. But because that's there, if that worked, I would run it in the Evolve deck again, where you have Hood and you have Void and you have Mysterio and all those things. Yes, it could probably work there, and I'm going to try it, believe me. But it's a weird one. I'm going to give it 3 stars, I think. Then we have a Series 4 card with Sandstorm. Insert Darude Sandstorm meme here. It is a 2-cost skill, which is on reveal, add 2 rocks to your hand, give them +1 power for each of your front row characters. This is a very good card, I think. Like, you play it slightly later into the game. I suppose, again, this is another card that combos with Gambit and Victoria hand kind of stuff. If you have a full front row, you're getting 2 1/6 rocks. And there is another card that combos with rocks, Ozymandias. I think once that card comes out, this card's stonks go up. I do believe it's quite a strong card by default, though. I also imagine if you play this, it counts as one of the... Oh no, it's characters, isn't it? Again, I'm speaking before I'm reading. Yeah, you'll have to have a character. I would believe on average this becomes 2 4-cost rocks most of the time. 4 power rocks even, sorry. Most of the time. But then you also have to play those rocks. So it's technically then like a 4/8 into 1-cost bodies. I don't know, I might have confused you there, but it sort of makes sense to me. You're spending 2 costs for the spell, getting 2 1-cost rocks to then play. I don't know if saying 4 cost on average is about what it would be, but I could imagine it being that. is you always want to play this turn 5. It's never a turn 6 play. So 4 cards. You could play a bunch of smaller cost cards and get it higher, but you could also not draw what you want. That's why I put it at 4 on average. I'm rambling a little bit now. So I'm going to give this card a 3-star. When Ozymandias releases, I'll probably give it 3.5. I see it doing good. I don't see it being meta dominating though. Cut to like 2 weeks from now when everyone's running Sandstorm Victoria hand decks. I could see that being a possibility, but I think 3 stars is a safe place to be. And the next week we have Caliban, Horseman of Pestilence, which is a 3/4. Objective, have 3 cards that cost 4 or higher in play, afflict the highest cost enemy card with -7 power. So this card is very cool. I believe I'm going to try running this in like a negative deck. I could see this being pretty cool. Again, the objective stat, I assume its effect doesn't revert if your requirement disappears. But I don't know, it's pretty cool. It's basically a Mega Sentinel in a smaller body with a harder thing to achieve. But I suppose if you played this and then played Sentry, Sentry's stocks are going up quite a bit. Most of these cards, I keep jumping to Sentry. I think it's just because I've been playing the Evolve deck whenever I have jumped onto Snap this season. I'm gonna have to do another video covering that deck, I swear. You play a 4, 5, and 6 cost, you're just playing on curve really. You're more than likely going to hit this ability. This card seems very good. It's a 3/11. There's nothing to scoff at. When you play this, play something, play Prodigy. I'm realizing now that's not actually going to work because you need 4 cost cards, and playing Prodigy takes over all of those turns, so you're pretty much playing it on a tempo ramp kind of deck, or maybe even just a tempo deck. You don't really need to ramp anything. I think it's good. Its deck constraint is the only thing letting it down. I would like to play it in the toxic deck I mentioned, because you could do like Malekith and then Ajax, and that's where things start to fall apart. I suppose there's not too many high cost toxic cards, I guess, like Man-Thing. So this thing could struggle to find a home. I think it's a very strong card. Let's give it 4. I give it 4 stars because I can definitely see a world where this card dominates and everyone's like scared of it. So for that reason, I'll give it 4 stars. And the following week we have Selene, Horseman of Famine, which is a 4/4. Objective, have 3 cards with no abilities in play, steal 5 power from an enemy card here. So finally some Patriot support. I think Patriot might need a little bit more support than this. That's the only thing I will say, because by default it's pretty much just a very strong bodied card. It is kind of like, what is it, like 4 power, taking 5 power, gaining 5 power, 14 power card. A 4 cost, and all you have to do is have 3 cards with no abilities in play. This suffers from a similar kind of thing that Caliban suffers from, is that by default it's a very good card. You compare a 3/11, which is Caliban, to a 4/14. They're on about the same level of insanity, I'd say. Just think about it, like a 4/14 is kind of crazy. But I do think Luke Cage is going to Luke Cage this season. Oh, it's not going to be fun to play these cards. But regardless, these cards that are afflicting are being put into decks that can't really fit afflict cards into them. I think that's being done with intention, because otherwise they would only fit into those decks. So they're more doing it just for the stats themselves. I don't really know, like, I guess if somebody wants to play the Patriot deck, or if you're a new player and you really want to play the Patriot deck, always get this card. I don't know how relevant in the meta it's going to be. Requiring 3 cards with no abilities. Now, I will say I have just been locking my mind into one possible outcome there. The other thing I have just considered is the rock deck. Because you play like Sandstorm, right? You get 2 cards that have no abilities. I suppose if you're playing the next card I'm about to mention, you're also playing something like Debris, having cards with no abilities in play. In a deck like that, do you also then just run Patriot? Maybe, like, you're having a whole bunch of rocks, it could make sense to run Patriot. So then maybe you run Squirrel Girl. And then all of a sudden, if you're running like a rock deck with Squirrel Girl, Patriot, Selene, Ozymandias, I will just jump to him very shortly because I'm talking about him a lot, so I apologize if you guys do not actually know his text. He's rock based, he does things with rocks. I could see this card doing quite crazy things actually. So maybe I give it a 4.5. Is that crazy? You guys think that's crazy? 4.5? I don't think that's crazy. It's a 4.14, and when I realize you can play things like demons and rocks and it still triggers its ability, you don't really need to go super heavy into the no abilities thing. But again, if you're a new player and you like playing a Patriot deck, I would recommend picking this up. 4.5, I'm happy with that. Next up we have Ozymandias. So Ozymandias is a ongoing, your rocks have +3 power. I realized I skipped its stats because I was so wanting to just say its ability for everyone for so long. It's a 5/9. Now 5/9 is premium for a 5-cost card. It's what Vision is now. It's this kind of Vision was seeing play in some decks that just needed a 5-cost card to get thrown in there. Obviously Vision is always going to be played over Ozymandias for that reason, but I'm also realizing like Clog as an archetype has really been removed. I think everyone's happy about that. Like, I don't think anyone's sad, but this is probably a tangent I'm going off on now. But cards like Hobgoblin and Green Goblin are in the gutters. Honestly, if you think about it, especially with how much Merlin was running around in the Dragon season. I still run Merlin, so whenever I encounter a Cog deck, I already know that I've got it sorted. But yeah, I don't know, Merlin really took a dump on them, and Ozymandias, I guess, doesn't really do anything now I think about it. One of the big changes was when they changed what Debris did and no longer put rocks on your opponent's side. It just made it very difficult to actually find a way to clog your opponent. Anyway, change the subject over. Ozymandias is a very good card, very limited in the archetype that it's going to go into. It's pretty much setting up a new archetype. It's a cool one, and I want it to do well because I'm always going to support whatever new archetypes come out. I think it can actually do some cool things. Victoria Hand, I don't know if you would run, because if you play like Debris, right? Debris rocks aren't technically... Oh, Victoria Hand is only created in hand, right? They are created cards, but they're just not created in hand. So you could. I think this card, I'm going to give it a 3.5. I'm already theory crafting in my head and getting excited for it. That deck that I mentioned before is something I'm going to 100% do when Ozymandias comes out. Card's really cool. It's limited in archetype. In a world where Star-Lord isn't as good as it is now, I would probably rate this 4 stars, but I'm also kind of hoping they don't just destroy Star-Lord. I heard somebody say that they should make him an activate, and I'm realizing now by the time this video goes out, I think the patch notes probably released the next day, but making him an activate's a pretty good fix. I think it was on the Snapchat that was said. Just off the top of my head, maybe. I've been all over the place. But yeah, that would be a very good fix. If that's the case, then Ozymandias is probably a 4-star. I'm going to be optimistic and say they did things to Star-Lord to balance him out. I was about to start ranting about Star-Lord again, but I think that maybe I do an entirely different video for that. We'll see. But yeah, next card. The next card is a 4/5 Ramatut with on reveal use hard modified card count. Yeah. His on reveals from cards released before this card's time. I was just looking at the card text that it has there. It's like the coding for the card, but basically it uses 3 cards on reveals that were released before this card. Weird. It's a very weird card. If any of you played Hearthstone, it feels a bit like Yogg-Saron to me. I'm just playing like 10 different spells with different targets and different random things. But I think people did the odds on what abilities it can get, and it feels like a net downside. I mean, even when you just consider how many cards there are that can destroy your cards or discard your cards, you get like Destroyer, Modok, Hood, I guess. I gave Hood in there just to give it a little bit of at least you didn't destroy everything. It'd be funnier if it was Hood, Destroyer, then Modok. But people have always spoken about the negative things that can happen with this card. It could also hit Brute, and you get 3 5 costs. I would have to go through every single on reveal that there has been, and also see which on reveals it can hit. It might not even be able to hit Brute, I'm not sure. Because I don't know if it's only cards that were released post-launch. Confusing card. Probably the weakest one of the season. Could be fun though. But I'm going to give it a 2.5 for that reason. So overall, this season is looking quite fun. I think the cards are feeling strong, but nothing feels crazy. Especially compared to this season, where there was like 1 crazy card, 2 okay cards, and everything else was kind of dookie. But yeah, I'm quite happy with where I placed all these cards. If you enjoyed the video, please drop a subscribe. I've been out of the game for a little bit, so I kind of need to get a little bit back on my feet. And I hope you guys are still around and enjoying the content. If you are, please comment Ramabut. Wow, I just realized how I'm tired, if you can't tell. I literally just read Ramatut and tried to think of something goofy, but didn't realize how insane that would sound, and how even more insane it would be when I get comments of people typing that. Screw it, I'm keeping that in. I'm keeping that in. But anyway, thanks in advance. Thank you for liking and subscribing, and I'll speak to you all next time.